I'm asking, do you believe them? Can they really, do their proposals really have any punch? Can the next Prime Minister really solve this crisis? So I'm joined by Sam Collins, head of Free Market Forum. Sam, right, so the candidates have come up with quite a bit. Rishi Sunak, he's pitched himself as the only sensible candidate, so he's talking about how he's going to keep taxes high, but this is the sensible thing to do, a bit like medicine. It needs to taste bad for it to be any good. Liz Truss, who said that she's going to extend the loan period so that it actually ends up costing more, but over a longer period of time, so it'll cost us less as we go. Penny Mordaunt said she's going to cut fuel duty. I mean, it goes on. Kemi says she's going to large tax cuts, and Tom Tugendhat, well, he's going to serve. That's what he kept saying. What do you think? Which candidate, to you, sounds like they've got the most realistic promise for solutions?
Well, the problem is that this isn't something that we can solve really quickly. The cost of living crisis has been building up for at least the last 3 years. No government's really got to grips with the underlying problem, which was that it costs too much to make stuff in the United Kingdom. And for a large part of that, it's because, yes, taxes are too high, but there is far too much regulation on British business. I mean, for example, if the UK has, on childcare, the UK has I think, 1-to-3 ratio between adults and children in childcare centres. The EU average is, I think, 1-to-5. If we just cut it to the European average, this isn't sort of Wild West crazy deregulation here, then that would save the average family £300 a month per child. This is the cost of regulation that's affecting British families, and it needs to be cut, and no one's talking about it.
Well, actually, Rishi Sunak talked about cutting regulations. So he's talking about cutting regulations, and Liz Truss mentioned it a bit as well. He said that EU laws and regulations are holding us back. That's what he said. And actually, he may well have a point, especially after what you just said there. But I don't understand why, as we've left the EU, we've not had to follow them anyway. So why we haven't done that until now?
No, you're absolutely right. The UK has not done nearly enough to take advantage of the benefits of Brexit. The problem, though, is that I don't think we can just blame EU regulations for this. So many of our regulations were thought up in Whitehall, have been written in Westminster, and are only affecting us. We chose to have that childcare to adult ratio. This wasn't an EU directive. This isn't something that we need to worry about that's going to cost us our trade deal with the European Union. This is something we could do now. And yes, I mean, some of the candidates, you're right, have been talking about European Union regulations, but they don't seem so keen to get to grips on some of the other big costs of living, childcare, housing. They really need to do a lot more to talk about the supply side reforms that are needed, rather than just talking about tax. Because I think, to be fair, Rishi Sunak has a point on tax. And I think that, to be fair, also Liz Truss's idea of stretching out the paying back of the debt is a reasonable answer there. But he does have a point. Just the UK's balance of payments is in a really bad state at the moment. The budget deficit is in a really bad state at the moment. We cannot afford to just keep spending money willy-nilly, and frankly, we cannot afford the huge tax cuts that would be required to actually offset these costs of living. We need to think about proper reform rather than just gimmicks around the tax code.
Yeah, I hear you. And ironically, the architect of a lot of that is Rishi Sunak himself. So I wonder how he's going to get around that. Sam Collins, thank you so much for talking to us.